Yeah,
you have
I
a co-host that's been willing to say things that I think in the audiences that I spend time with, the ag audiences, there are a lot of people that have the same thoughts that she does, but would never dare to say them. Like she has very strong feelings against divorce and very strong feelings about raising other people's children. And I certainly don't agree with everything she says, but I am fascinated when she says it.
That's part of the fun. You know, I like to think that that we balance each other out. She's very. Someone in the chat said last night, like, Matt's going to come at you with like calm reason. That's going to be his angle. Blonde's going to shank you in the back. That's basically the approach. And I've enjoyed working with her because I think we really do balance each other out. I'm not going to be the guy who's going to be cutthroat and blunt in the way that she is. That's not to say that that's always applicable. I will always stand by the idea of persuading people with reason and calmer heads winning the day. That said, in many ways, we are in a cultural knife fight right now. And I think that her bluntness and her wake-up calls are very important. They've certainly, I like to think that I pull her off the cliff edge a little bit sometimes, but I think that she gets me to wake up on some real threats to my values more quickly than I might if I was just left to myself.
How long do you think we've been in a cultural knife fight?
Well, certainly the entire duration of Trump's presidency, maybe a little bit before that too. But I think that the election of him in 2016 sent a lot of people, it made a lot of people totally crazy and willing to undermine the integrity of this country's institutions to achieve their ends. That's really when I woke up to it, at least, was around 2015, 2016.
So I used to work for Monsanto, which, much maligned, hated company, but it gave me an opportunity to go into places that I would never have been able to see otherwise. And I had a chance to go to the Clinton Global Initiative and see how are they working? How are they bringing people together? And I remember sitting in those meetings that were supposed to be for everyone. They were bringing everybody from Walmart and the Monsantos of the world, connected with mayors in San Francisco. And I mean, just this huge amalgamation. And I remember sitting there thinking, they are not debating ideas. They are telling everyone here, this is what you will believe if you want to get benefit from this. And I remember like having this revelation in the middle of being about 4 rows away from Bill Clinton and being like, I want to get the fuck out of here. But that's when I really realized like we're in a cultural knife fight, and that the way that people think is not the way that I think.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. It's not just that people disagree with me. Obviously, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with people who disagree with me, and I'll try to persuade them. And sometimes they persuade me, and that's great. That's what makes the world go around. What you're talking about is exactly what is the sort of just cultural authoritarianism that is trying to eat us all. And it's not looking to persuade you on the ideas. It's not looking to convince you of a certain worldview. It's telling you this is the way it is. And if you don't get on board, you will face punishment. I had a similar awakening in a workplace when I had a quote unquote real job prior to doing this. And I don't know how familiar with like my past or history you are, but I used to be one of the good Democrats. I used to be one of the lefties, get in line and vote for Obama. That was me. And I worked in a pretty progressive office space. And one of the last meetings I had before I left that job was one of these like racial equity type trainings. I had not had an awakening to see this for what it was at the time. I thought at the time I'm thinking, oh, this is where we go and learn about sensitivity, and this is going to be great. This is how we're better colleagues and all that. But they backed off on this. Thankfully, it didn't happen. But the original idea that was floated was discussion groups segregated by race in this workplace. There was going to be the white table and the black table, and it didn't happen. And I know there were some people, I had kind of a nudge, wink, wink relationship with some of the people at work. Like we kind of knew some of this stuff was crap. But that for me was one of the moments where I was like, what? I mean, and keep in mind, this is a work environment where everyone's on a union contract. Everyone who's doing the same job is making the same money. There's no gender wage gap there. There's no racial wage gap there. Most of the people I worked with were minority women. And we're still going to sit around and pretend that there's some white male domination here. All my bosses were minority women, and it was still infecting that workspace. And if you dared say anything against the narrative of such a meeting, you're probably gone,
Well, one of the things I was just talking about this with a good friend of mine the other day is I don't think people realized the extent to which the public relations firms that consult with major Fortune 500 companies are driving forward the divisiveness in the world. Yeah. And like my hypothesis is that it's a bunch of people that were party kids in college that didn't actually get real educations. They studied communications, which is what I studied. So I was right there with them, and I was
a political science kid. Yeah, I mean, I know how it goes.
And so they're sitting there in PR firms, and they are the type of highly agreeable. We want to get along with everybody. Hey, everybody says that the nice thing to do is to implement these standards or to not say these things. And the executives of the company are running the company. They aren't thinking about this stuff. They aren't thinking deeply and philosophically. They're just like, my PR company says we need to put in these things in order to be liked by the public. Fine, let's do it. And once you've taken one step down that path, then the party girls from college are the ones that are driving your social policy. When you were describing Target the other day, guaranteed that is being driven by their PR firm. And people don't realize how much of an impact PR firms are having on our culture right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't worked in that sort of environment for going on 5 years now. So I don't know I have no idea what it's like now. But yeah, I mean, we in our audience, going back to, why I think our community is so successful, it's so suffocating for so many people that you just need an outlet to be able to discuss why this stuff is crap. And I think that's an indictment on our culture, corporate America, all these places where we've decided there's one narrow worldview that's accepted. And if you don't get on board, you're not going to have gainful employment, at least in the country's major employers, for example.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.